Hey up everybody, and welcome back to the I'll Do Cycling YouTube channel, where today we're going to be taking a look at the VELOGAMES Italy competition. I did a video yesterday doing my initial reactions to the rider pricings, and I've taken a bit more time to go over those again alongside the stage profiles to give a bit more of a comprehensive overview, I suppose, of who you should be picking for the competition this time round. Before we just go any further, if you haven't done already, because I realised that the Giro kind of increases the audience of these videos, I have been making some wall charts for all of the VELOGAMES sort of competitions, the stage race championship and also the warm-up championship. So if you have competed in those competitions and you would like a wall chart, they are all designed by me with hand-drawn designs. And by buying them, 10% of the profits go to VELOGAMES. So if you would like to go get one, I'll put a link to the little online shop in the description so you can go and get one. But first things first, let's go take a look at the stage profiles. We're not on PCS today because for now you need a paid subscription to use it. Otherwise you have to click on ads all the time, and that would really suck for this video. So stage one, we've got, I think will probably be a reduced sprint. Probably like a Pedersen style stage, Groves, that sort of stuff. Stage 2, the pretty flat TT for pretty much Josh Tarling. Maybe Wout van Aert, but he has been ill apparently. Stage 3 is a bit of an interesting one. I'm not sure how this last climb will influence it. It could be one for a breakaway. It could be one for a reduced sprint-ish amongst whoever can survive that. Stage 4 is a sprint. Stage 5 kind of varies depending on like what you look at. 3Ks at 8%, and these last climbs are not that easy. This honestly makes it look a lot easier than I think the sprint will actually be. I think it's more of a puncher style stage. Stage 6 looks like it should be again a sprint day. Stage 7, it could be a breakaway, or if a GC rider really wants to put their team to work to try and get some seconds here, they might decide to do that as well. Stage 8 looks like a breakaway day to me. Stage 9 very up and down, but a bit of a punchy finish. So it could be, well, this is actually the gravel day. So I reckon this will be probably like a gravel one-day specialist who'll win this. Obviously we saw, Pelayo Sanchez won the gravel stage last time. So you might see a breakaway winning this, or just a very attritional race from a front group of all the kind of main contenders, and then somebody just wins from there. Stage 10, we've got a TT, again probably another tiling stage. Stage 11, we've got the San Pellegrino climb in the middle, but then some softer category 2s to finish with. So I don't think the GC riders will use this as a big springboard to try and do something unless they have riders in the breakaway. So I think this will be a breakaway day. Stage 12 I think will be a sprint day, although there are some climbs in here which might try and entice a strong breakaway to form. Realistically, I think it'll be a sprint. Stage 13, I think this will be held together for a puncher style finish. Stage 14 I think will be a sprint. Stage 15, again, very similarly, you've got Monte Grappa and then a softer 5% climb with a plateau, so I think that'll be a breakaway day. And then we get into the GC days, which is stage 16. Stage 17 might be a GC day if they get somebody in the breakaway, because you've got this long kind of valley road, I suppose. So that could be a breakaway day or a GC day. Stage 18 is going to be a sprint, I suppose. It could also be a breakaway day for like rouleurs. Stage 19 I think will be a GC day, and then stage 20 will definitely be a GC day, although there are rumours of the Finestla being taken out because of snow, so it might well get shortened or whatever, so that might influence your picks, I suppose. And then stage 21 is the sprint around Rome. Anyway, let's talk about the VELOGAMES riders. Now we've gone through all the stage profiles, there seems to be quite a lot of breakaway style days, definitely some sprints, although more for the hardier sprinters, let's say. But Roglic is the most expensive rider at 24 credits, and that makes a lot of sense. He's been very good this year. Volta Catalunya, he won pretty convincingly. He's got a good time trial as well, and I think generally going with GC riders who can do a good time trial is a good idea, because they'll get those 2 TT days and then the daily GC points, which will come from being higher up in GC as a consequence of doing a good time trial, versus the other pure climbers who are very limited in their ability to score unless they can get into breakaways. Roglic I really like. I think he's safe. Is he going to get to the mythical 100 points per credit that I tried to set as a bit of a benchmark for riders? I'm not too sure, because if he wins, he gets 600 points for the overall, so that means he needs 1,800 points. He'll probably get 300, 400 of those from daily GC points as well. So now he's down to 1,500, and it's like maybe he gets a couple of hundred off those in just the TTs. I'm not sure if they will hit 100 points per credit, but I'm not sure how many other riders will. At the end of the day, Roglic is the big favourite for GC, and maybe this isn't going to be a race where it's the most optimal points per credit which wins, but it's just a matter of you just sort of need the winners, because taking a look around the rest of the rider categories, you sort of realise there isn't, I'm not really sure where else you'd put your credits to really compensate for that. So I think Roglic is a good pick. I think Ayuso is a good pick as well. He's got a very strong TT. You could argue that it's maybe a little bit better than Roglic's on flat parcours, which there are in the time trials. So Roglic and Ayuso I've got no problems with. Tiberi's a little bit shaky for me. He has been posting rides, and he did get a KOM up the San Pellegrino climb. He's posting some good numbers, obviously, but he did DNF the Tour of the Alps. And at 14 credits, Tiberi's quite dear. If he does the 2 good TTs and he manages to hold on, though, maybe he could be worth it if he finishes inside the top 5. Derek G, I would say I'm not that tempted by, just because at 12 credits, his TT's good, but maybe he's going to be finishing in the lower end of the top 10, so he really needs 1,000 points. Can he generate that through the mountaintop finishes? He's not the best climber. He's good, so I'm not sure about Derek G. I think that he's a good choice, but I think he'll get somewhere maybe just short of the 100 points per credit mark. So he's still going to be good, but maybe just not the best, is my take on it. It depends if he can get in another breakaway or something like that. A Rensman I do like, because at 10 credits, he is quite a good choice, I think, to hit 100 points per credit. He needs 1,000 points to do that. And I'm fairly certain in the last 2 Giro that he's done, pretty much most Grand Tours he's done, he exceeds 1,000 points. So a Rensman is nice and safe. Del Toro, I think, has inherently more risk involved over, say, a Rensman, because there are plenty of other riders for UAE Team Emirates who he will need to be protecting, like Adam Yates and Ayuso, and you're really banking on him getting into breakaways. I would say a Rensman's TT is better than his. So I think Del Toro, although more exciting as a rider, will be more chained to domestique duties. Martinez very similarly, although he was on the podium last year, I think that he'll be working for Roglic. Bilbao is, apparently they're all in on Tiberi. I don't think he's going to get that many opportunities. Kelderman, if you think that he might try and get him a breakaway to try and get his first World Tour stage victory, then by all means go with him. McNulty and Vine, both good time trialists, but it wasn't in their press release, but I saw somewhere in some group chat or other that I'm in that Vine is really focusing on the 2 time trials, and then outside of that he's not really, he's just there to really help the team primarily. So if that's the case, Vine might not be the best, but if he does go for breakaways, he will absolutely be worthwhile over, plenty of other people here. And I'd say that he's better than McNulty just because he was very good in the Tour de Romandie. The climbers, we have, and I mentioned this in my video yesterday, I'm just not a massive fan of the climber category this year. Nobody's massively jumping out at me, and the reason for that is just because they don't have the greatest time trialing abilities. So their ability to score points is based solely upon those last, stage 16, 18, 16, whichever it was. It was 16, 20, and 19 or something like that. I'm just not sure about that because they need to get to those stages to begin with, right? My point being is that every stage is an opportunity where something can go wrong. And therefore, you're sort of gambling a large proportion, at least a tenth of your team's budget on somebody who might only be scoring big in the last few stages, which will work out. Like, one of these is going to prove me wrong, but I'm not willing to risk that. They're going to need to get into a breakaway to be more worthwhile. So I'd say of these, to group all these guys together a little bit, I'd say maybe Storer and Ciccone and maybe Simon Yates might be more tempted, are more likely to get in a breakaway. Carapaz maybe, but he hasn't shown the form this year. Bernal kind of similarly. Landa, I think, at 14 credits is just very expensive. Like, the number of people in a Grand Tour in VELOGAMES who get over 1,400 points is pretty small, and I'm just not sure if Landa is going to be able to do that. And then Adam Yates, I don't think he's going to be getting in a breakaway, and because he's too much of a GC favourite to be allowed to do that. Red Bull just won't allow it, probably. So for me, I like Storer, Yates and Ciccone possibly, just because Storer was on fire in the Tour of the Alps, so he might finish top 10 and get some breakaway opportunities. Ciccone kind of similarly, he was very good in Liège, but he will be limited. He won't be able to get those puncher stages because Pedersen's there. And then Yates, just because Visma Lease bike are seem a little bit like, I don't know, loosey-goosey with their team this year, where they don't have like a big support for a mountain train. They don't have a big lead out either. I think that they might try getting breakaways quite a bit, and if Simon Yates drops some time in that gravel stage, then I reckon he'll get in a break, and his TT is okay, where he might be a top 15 or top 20. So those three possibly I could make an argument for. Hindley, I think he'll just be working for Roglic. For 8 credit riders, Bardet I do quite like, just because it's his final Giro and I think he's going to be trying to do something. I know there's also Max Poole here, which he might just end up being a domestique for, but Bardet was looking pretty good in Tour of the Alps, and I just think that a guy in his final Giro who's in decent form, he's got to try and get in some breakaways. He'll lose time in the TTs and then go in the break, surely. Caruso I was hyping up quite a bit yesterday, but upon looking at their press release, it seems like they are just all in around Tiberi, and Caruso they pretty much say will be his shadow throughout the whole of the race. He might get some of his own opportunities, but that might only be, a handful of stages, of which there's no guarantee that he'll be the winner. So Caruso might be a top 20, and he might snag like a couple of top 5s, so maybe not the most worthwhile. Fortunato was very good in Tour of the Alps, and I skipped over him yesterday. I don't know why, but Fortunato will lose so much time in the TTs, and then he'll be able to get in the breakaways. So I think he's good. Astana, they're just on a high at the moment, and I think Fortunato is a really good choice of 8 credit riders. Piganzoli, I might decide you might go with, or Poole, Rubio, Zana. They're all breakaway potential riders for sure, who might snag a top 15 depending on which breaks they get into. Steinhauser's a bit more of an interesting one. He hasn't really done a Grand Tour GC. He was very good last year, but if just repeating that again this year won't be worthwhile, he'll need to do a little bit more. And at 8 credits, he's going to need to get in quite a few breakaways, but I think that he's very capable of doing that. And then the 6 credit climbers, I'm not really a fan of many of them, other than possibly Frigo. I quite like, because he won the stage of Tour of the Alps. He's one of the only more climber-orientated riders for Israel Premier Tech. So I think that Frigo's an interesting one. Cepeda as well, although his previous Grand Tour results have been pretty bad. Paul Double, Jacob Alula are pretty much just firing people in the breakaway by the sounds of things, so another one to add to that. Micah just for the assist points. Jan Hurt has won a stage in the Giro in the past. Mienkes might well try to get the breakaway as well. So generally the 6s aren't that great in my opinion. The climbers is just a bit of a strange category for me this year. I'm not really finding that those real kind of star, like, people are real jumping out at me as undervalued or just like very good value. The sprinters. So apparently Wout van Aert has been sick for the last week or so, according to his Strava, I think it was. But he's a great time trialist. He'll be involved in some of the reduced sprints, but in the pure sprints, he'll be working for Koi, so that's going to limit his ability. I just think that it's 16 credits for a guy who hasn't been on fire this year. He's been good, but just not great. I just think 16 credits is kind of a lot. So I'll probably be avoiding Wout van Aert, but I can understand why he is 16 credits, because he's Wout van Aert and he can do some crazy things. Pedersen at 14 credits I understand as well, because he will be up there in a lot of the sprints. He is a fast bunch sprinter, not the best, but fast. And he's also very good at getting into breakaways for the Chiclamino points and stuff like that. So Pedersen makes a lot of sense, because I could see Pedersen competing in, at least maybe like 8 stages, something like that. Pedersen could be competitive in, and the TT as well on stage 2. Like, Pedersen could win stage 1. He could also finish like top 5 in the TT on stage 2. So Pedersen I really like as well. No problems there. 14 credits though, he will need to be like, he could hit 100 points per credit, but it's going to be pretty tight. Koi, on the other hand, has slightly worse climbing ability than Pedersen, but I would say on a flat sprint, Koi is the fastest sprinter in this race, so he will be picking up stage wins. I have no doubt about that. Although he is apparently leaving Visma Lease Bike, so who knows where his allegiances lie right now. Groves I like at 10 credits. Yeah, this is a guy who's continuously hit over 1,000 points in many Grand Tours, and I think that he is, on paper, probably like the second fastest flat sprinter here, and he's also got some pretty good versatility, so I think that he might be able to hang with Pedersen on some stages, especially like stage 1, so I like Groves. And then the other sprinters, I'm not that much of a, like the 8 credit sprinters, I'm not that much of a fan of. Magnier possibly, because he's more of a puncher style and he is going to be their sprinter, not Lamperty, according to their website. But Magnier in the pure sprints has just been, I feel like he just gets shuffled out of position because he's not overly used to pure bunch sprinting. So I'm not sure about him. Bennett, I think, will be up there in a few top 5s in the sprints because he is very fast. Corbin Strong for the more reduced sprints will be very good as well. Gerber Tayson will be up there, but I would honestly I would probably skip the 8s and just go looking at the 6s, because I think you get just as good of a sprinter in some of the 6s, like Moschetti as a flat sprinter is just as good, in my opinion, as Sam Bennett, and I think that Lenardi as a reduced sprinter is just as good as Magnier. So I would say that I'd probably go either Pedersen, Koi, Groves, skip the 8s, and then look at the 6s, because Fretan, Cantor, Lenardi, and Moschetti are all very good picks instead of the 8s. Who, like, that's not even, no offense to them. It's just the way the scoring works. The unclassified riders, Pidcock is 10 credits. Again, this is like the 3rd time that we've seen him as the unclassified 10 credit rider, something like that. And I like Pidcock for this race. I think that Q36.5 are going to want to make a big impression in their first Grand Tour, and I think that Pidcock is their guy for this. They say they're just taking it day by day. They don't say he's going for GC, which is good as from a point scoring perspective. I think that Pidcock has got the ability to do well in multiple stages. Outside of the pure mountaintop finishes, of which there aren't many, I think that Pidcock can pretty much compete in any of the other medium mountain stages or breakaway days or puncher days. So I think, and the Strade Bianchi day as well. I think Pidcock has got so much potential in this race, so I'm a big fan of him for this race. The 8 credit guys, I'm not that much of a fan of. Statistically speaking, the 8 credit riders aren't worth it most of the time, unless they can get into a GC position, of which I don't see either of these guys doing. Yes, they will have very good individual successes at times, but I think that you can get equally as good quality riders in the 6 credit bracket area. Speaking of which, let's go take a look. So Affini has been good in the past, but that's because he's been able to go and sprint, but he won't be able to do that because there's Wout van Aert and Olav Koy here. Baroncini, if he can roll back to the Vuelta last year where he finished top 10 in that TT, in the last TT, if he can do that on both the TTs and be involved in some of the sprints, even if it's just the last one or maybe like 2 of them or getting a break or whatever, he will be worth it. But there's a couple of conditionals on, for that to be the true. So there might be safer options like Bouchard, who has won the KOM classification in multiple races in years gone by, so he will bound to be getting in the breakaway since Decathlon don't have that many climbers. So Bouchard is safe. Bauman's won the KOM classification in the Giro before, and like I said earlier, Jacob Alula are going to be putting people in the breakaway left, right and centre. Obviously they have a lot of climbers, so maybe it might not be Koen Bouwman. There might be plenty of other options for them to go with instead, so maybe that kind of dilutes his abilities to score points. Brenner possibly. If Stora's too high up in GC, they might send Brenner in the breakaway. He was pretty good in Giro d'Abruzzo. He's been generally quite good this year. So Brenner, I quite like. Catania for getting a top 10 in both TTs and maybe snagging another couple of top 10s in time trials, I think is a realistic probability. That would probably score him about 350, 400 points, which isn't too bad. The other 6 credit riders, there are quite a lot to be going at. Fiorelli, I like. He is a sprinter, so I think that he'll be really good. I think he'll be getting multiple top 10s, and he's a good reduced sprinter as well, so I think that Fiorelli's got a lot of opportunity here to score some points. Chris Harper is one of the better ones in this category because he is going for GC. Now that might limit him in terms of his breakaway possibilities, but I think that Harper is a great climber, and although we haven't seen it in a Grand Tour full force yet, I think that Harper's got a lot of potential to, if he can get in breakaways, he'll be really good. And if he is fighting for GC, he'll be incredible value for money. Patrick Conrad, I don't know why, I've just got a strange feeling. Maybe it's because he's got my first name, that's probably it. But Conrad has had some flashes of decent form this year, and I think that he might get in some breakaways. Bart Lemon can have a very good climbing performance every now and again, and possibly could get in many breakaways. Martinelli is a good puncher, so he'll be getting some top 10s in those punchier stages. Plapp, I think, is also very good value for money for a couple of top 10s in the time trials and trying to get in breakaways. Okay, his form this year hasn't been great, but I think that things can really change in a Grand Tour. And I think Plapp, with getting 2 top 10s in the TT, gives him a real good starting position to go into other breakaways where they like some of those Category 2 stages or this Category 2 climbs to the finish. I think that Plapp has got his name written all over those. Ploymers would be a good pick if there wasn't Zylard here for the pure sprints, but Ploymers for some of the reduced sprints have been very good. Wout Poels I actually missed yesterday. Honestly, my team would be a lot simpler to make if Wout Poels was a climber. Because Wout Poels just won the Tour de Turquia. He's obviously in great form, and he'll be getting breakaways. Absolutely. Wout Poels, great pick. Probably one of the better ones in this category. Tarling is a great pick as well, just for the fact that he might well win the 2 TTs, which will get him 440 points. So Tarling's really good. Maybe a little bit limited in that he won't be able to get in the mountain breakaways, but I think he's probably one of the safest 6 credit riders that you could be going with, for sure. Voisard, maybe. He climbs very well, but Stora and Brenner, I kind of prefer Brenner to Voisard. Zambonini will get his own opportunities, but they'll be pretty few and far between. And then the 4 credit riders, you've got the Bais brothers who always get in breakaways. So they are both good choices. Nico Denz, this guy's won 2 Giro d'Italia stages, so Denz is really good, but whether he'll have the same freedom as he did when it was Bora Hansgrohe, not Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, I don't know. But Denz, by all means, if you think that he can roll back the clock to a couple of years ago, then go for it. Garofoli is one of the better climbers for Soudal Quickstep. This is a guy who's been on the top 30 in GC a few times this year in some major races, and that's when he's been working for other people. He was just outside the top 10, I think, in the last stage of Basque Country, so he's a good puncher as well. So I like Gareth Foley for plenty of breakaway opportunities. Hugo Houle has obviously won a stage of the Tour. Who else have we got? Marcelluzzi, Milesi, just for the time trialling ability. Plancard will be the lead-out man for Groves. So if Groves were to DNF for whatever reason, Plancard would be a good one. Rojas is a great puncher for Groupama, and Godou doesn't look that great at the moment based upon Romandy. So Remy Rojas could be very good, but just because if Godou's not feeling that great, Rojas will have more and more freedom. Stork was top 10 in that first stage of Tour of the Alps, and he's clearly climbing very well. And yeah, I think Tude will be keen to just get a lot of visibility in this race. And yeah, honestly, there might be some other ones in here. Be sure to put them in the comments if I've missed anyone. But at the moment, this is my team. Roglic, Ayuso, Bardet, Frigo, Groves, Pidcock, Tarling, Pulls, and Arensman. It's very similar to the team I had yesterday. I'm trying to not change things around too much. But let's say, just for the fun of it, let's say that I didn't go with Pidcock, and instead I went with a 6 credit rider who, let's say, who else might I go with? I've already got Pools. Let's say Plapp. It might be Plapp or somebody like Fiorelli, let's say. And then I would put those onto a Rensman. I could get Pedersen, so I could have Groves and Pedersen in the same team, which is very, very tempting. Now, it makes me a little bit more limited in my breakaway mountain stages because I'd only really have Bardet, Frigo, Plapp, Pools. But I could take Tarling off if I wanted to, but I just really like the safety that he provides. Somebody like Brenner or Fiorelli with the multiple sprinting opportunities, or Harper with his GC capabilities, in theory have a higher ceiling in terms of the number of points they can score than Tarling. But I'd say that Tarling's floor is higher than theirs, just because he is one of the better time trials in this race. So although Tarling might not have the absolute top-end scoring capabilities, he's very safe. And I know that in those TTs, I'll be a lot happier having Tarling on my team. So I might well go with something like this, which is a bit more sprinter-orientated with Pedersen. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm not too sure about it. I just quite like Pidcock for this race, but maybe I'm just being delusional. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section. And be sure to put your teams down there as well. And be sure to also come back tomorrow where me and some of the other guys from the the podcasting videos that we did last year are going to have a big deep dive analysis on this. So that's going to be like an hour long. So be sure to come back for that, and then I'll reveal my team full on Thursday before the race starts on Friday. And all that is left to say is to stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next video. Salut!